ArcGlobe can be used in many examples to help understanding or visualization of data. So in these next few examples, let's take a look at how ArcGlobe is used to convey some important concepts and understand some geographic relationships. In ArcGlobe, let's go ahead and use some of the navigation tools and zoom to a previously defined bookmark. Let's navigate to Western Siberia and then start to look at some thematic data that we can drape on top of our map. The first thing you'll see is a NEMA ONC, Operational Navigational Chart. So a simple navigation chart that I can adjust the transparency on so that we can blend the navigation map with some of the real color imagery of this area. Then what we might want to do if we were trying to study a problem in Western Siberia, we start to add our thematic data on top of this. For example, I can add the magnetic anomalies of the former Soviet Union. This data is used to help understand some of the bedrock geology and is used in the exploration of oil and gas in Western Siberia. We can take this data and use the magnetic anomalies both as a thematic map and also as terrain data, so we can create a three-dimensional perspective view of the magnetic anomalies, and then we can overlay the locations of the oil and gas fields of Western Siberia on top of this data. And what you'll start to see as you study and visualize this data is how many of the oil and gas fields of this area are immediately adjacent to some of these magnetic anomalies. So this is a technique used in the exploration of oil and gas, and we can start to visualize some of this data using the three-dimensional aspects of ArcGlobe. Let's go ahead and turn that data off and navigate to another location, in this case Bam, Iran. This is an area in Iran that on December 26, 2003 had a 6.6 magnitude earthquake. So how can we start to convey some of the concepts of this earthquake using ArcGlobe? Well, the first thing we do is we start zooming in on Bam, and you'll see we're navigating through a series of Department of Defense navigational maps. As we adjust through these different scale dependencies, you'll see the maps automatically switch over to more and more detailed information. We've even added in an Iranian topographic map. Many of these maps come to us from Eastview Cartographics, and we've simply added these geo-referenced images or data sets into our global visualization environment. And if we zoom in a little bit further, you'll see we can add in high-resolution satellite imagery taken right after the earthquake from Digital Globe's QuickBird satellite and combine that with the USAID damage assessment map. We've also added some labels of some of the more significant features in this town. And as we zoom in further, we can actually look using the satellite imagery at some of the damage that occurred to many of the buildings in this area. This location here is the Citadel of Bam, and this is a mud brick building, and if we use our transparency tool, what we can do is choose the layer that's our post-earthquake image and adjust the transparency and dissolve that to what it looked like before the earthquake. And you can notice the dome structures on top of the buildings and the well-defined walls, and if you compare that to the current structure after the earthquake, you can visualize and see much of the damage that killed more than 35,000 people in this area. As another example, if you come over here to the southwest to a residential area, you can see at this bottom part of the screen a mosque. You can see the dome structure, and you can see the well-defined walls and streets of all the residential buildings to the north. And if you look at this image after the earthquake, you can visualize and see much of the rubble as many of these buildings and homes were destroyed. So these are a couple examples of using the visualization concept and integrating multiple data sets and maps in ArcGlobe in order to convey and communicate some of these concepts. ArcGlobe is also part of the 3D Analyst, and as such it has many of the tools that you'd expect in the 3D Analyst that many of you have used, for example, with ArcScene. For example, let's come back over here to the continental US, and we can take three-dimensional features like the locations of imperiled species or threatened and endangered species and start to create a visualization that extrudes these features as three-dimensional polygons. You can see we can adjust the scale, vertical exaggeration to make these bar heights any height we want. In this case, you can start to understand where are the greatest number of imperiled species in the US. In the Florida Everglades, the Appalachian Mountains, and then over towards the California deserts. So using the navigation tools of ArcGlobe, you can even see Hawaii has a number of threatened and endangered species, or imperiled species in this case as well, as compared to Alaska, which it does not. So we start to use ArcGlobe and many of these three-dimensional visualization tools to help, again, convey these messages and concepts.